In the video editing process, I noticed that the video came across, maybe it's giving the wrong message. I don't want to send the message that the police are bad or that I'm angry with the police. Certainly I think that it was a bad move, but it was a bad policy. And the individual police officers that had to carry that policy out are really not to blame here. They had a job to do and they did it. And there's just no way that they could have foreseen what I believe was the outcome of crushing cruising as an activity. So let's try to keep the comments away from police bashing. That's not what this channel is about. This channel is about my car, car culture, the nostalgia that went with my car. And this particular video was about a bad policy. This was a challenge that we faced, and this was the outcome of that challenge as I see it. If you do have some constructive comments or something that you would like to add to this discussion, please add it to the comments because I want to know. I'm Jason with Saving Sally, and this is video number 2 in the Carticulate series. And in this video, I'm going to talk about a little bit of an opinion, maybe even a theory that I have about the decline of car culture and cruising as an activity for teenagers and the rise of drug use as a substitute activity among teenagers. So stick around because I'm going to make a good effort to tie those two things together that really seem pretty unrelated, but in my opinion, have a lot more to do with each other than maybe you would think. I have floated this idea among a lot of people, and most everybody that I have floated it to has at least told me that they've agreed with me. Maybe they're just being nice, but I also want to say this is probably regional. You know, what happened for me in my little small town of Coleman, Alabama is probably not true of some town in New Mexico, but I will guarantee you that the town where I live is not the only place that saw this happen. So, what are you talking about? All right, so when I was in high school or even in middle school, all everybody wanted to do was to get a car, go to town, and go cruising. It seems silly to tell it now, but it was so much fun when we were doing it. And you just drive to the north end of town, and you would catch a red light there, and turn around at the red light, or maybe you would even go through the shopping center if you didn't like your place in line, and then come out and get a new place, and then go to the south end of town and do the same thing. And just go from one end of the town to the other all night long. And you would, during that time, you know, eat at McDonald's or Burger King or whatever it is, buying gas and your Coke or your Pepsi or whatever you wanted to get. And the whole point was to just be seen and to see people. Most people who went cruising were not looking for trouble. They weren't out there looking to fight or even a street race. They were out there just driving around, hooting and hollering and waving at their buddy or their stranger or whoever it was. Hey, let me ride in your car. That's a cool car. You want to ride in my car? It doesn't make sense, all right? It's just a completely illogical thing, but in a small town where there is nothing to do for young folks, it was the thing to be doing. Anybody who was everybody was uptown cruising. I don't want to paint this picturesque idea that it was without problem. Certainly it was. There were a few known places where, you know, if you want trouble, that's where you go. You go to the parking deck, or maybe you go sit in the parking lot of the Faro shops. There was some street racing. I'm even going to admit that I participated in some of the street races, but that didn't happen in the main town. You found someone who said they wanted to race, and you said you wanted to race, and you went somewhere else to a deserted road, and you acted like idiots. Were those things problems? Absolutely. But I want to again stress how small of a number of teenagers were doing that as compared to the ones that were out just driving around having a good time. Something interesting, though, began to happen around the time I was turning 19. The Coleman City Police began to just super efficiently, we'll use the word efficiently, pull over and write tickets. And when I say efficient, they were efficient. There was a time when I got pulled over and I got 5 tickets in one sitting. And all of them were bogus. I'm going to just 100% tell you right now, I did not have an improper muffler. My windows weren't even tinted, but I got a window tint ticket, improper tread wear. I don't even remember the other 2 anymore. But I did go to court. I fought all 5 of those tickets, and I beat all of them. It was just a campaign to scare kids from coming back into town. And it worked. So, you know, most kids, they get a ticket or 2. They quit coming back to town. And cruising died. Cruising literally just went away over about 2 summers. And when I say 2 summers, that second summer, I mean, the streets were deserted. There were a few people out doing it, but ticket, and they quit. It was so bad that when I was 20, I actually lived in town. And it became difficult for me to go anywhere after dark, especially on a weekend, because if I were out in my car After the sun went down, well, the police just assumed that I was out cruising and looking for other cruisers. I would get pulled over, and of course, the usual questions: "What are you doing? Where you? Oh, you live here. Okay, go about your business." But even in those cases, I oftentimes ended up with tickets. It was ridiculous. How does that tie into the drug use? Pretty much everybody who was in my age demographic and a couple of years younger than me, we all shared the same vision of what a fun weekend was. We wanted to go cruising, or maybe go to the movies, maybe toilet paper some yards or something like that. But the people that were just a year or two younger than that, I remembered one night getting invited to go to, it was a new subdivision. They had just cleared off a bunch of trees and paved a road all the way up to the top of the mountain. And there was nothing up there but a paved road and woods. And went up there, and I started seeing a bunch of people that I knew. Most of them were younger than me. And that was the first time I had actually ever seen any kind of illegal narcotics with my own eyes. And it wasn't just one or two people up there. Almost everybody up there was experimenting with something. As I kind of began to look around and notice the behavior and activity of the crowd, one, I didn't feel like I fit in. But for two, a lot of these people were standing on cars, walking on their friends' cars, and there was just things that I didn't want anybody doing to my car. And I made a good excuse, and I left. What I'm suggesting to you is that even though cruising may have came with a handful of problems, we, as the teenagers at the time, were at very least right under the noses of law enforcement, the city leaders. Yeah, we were probably disruptive at times, and yeah, cruising brought its own set of headaches. But the headaches that brings, in my opinion, there's that word again, are nothing compared to the problems of rampant drug abuse and alcohol abuse. And so I'm actually going to suggest that, at least in part of the drug problem that exploded rapidly in my little hometown was directly tied to the police activity making every effort to absolutely crush cruising as an activity for kids. Part of me, wants to place a little bit of blame, maybe on the chief of police. In a perfect world, I wish he would have said to the business owners that complained, "Okay, we'll put up a few no parking signs, and if we see people in your parking lot, we'll run them off, problem solved." The argument that, well, maybe it was interfering with business as usual, that might fly in some towns, but not in Coleman County at the time. The joke back in those days were after 8 o'clock, pretty much the town just rolls up the sidewalks. About 2/3 of the business just fold up and go underground, and the other remaining businesses that were still visible were just out there to be seen to let people know there was still a town, because they were closed too. Short of a few fast food restaurants, pretty much everything was closed at 8, 9, or 10 o'clock, and there just shouldn't have been a good excuse to say, well, the businesses feel like that their customers are being impeded. You might even make an argument that the extra traffic was an issue for the town. With the town being closed, the traffic just shouldn't have been an issue, and there are plenty of streets that parallel US 31 that would allow anybody to get around the traffic if they wanted to. Something else that I have to kind of throw in and consider with my theory, as it were, widespread drug abuse, I just don't know that there was anything we could have done to ever kept it from coming in. But what I will say is that when you, with your own eyes, see a phenomenon where, people from 5, 6 towns away would all come and converge on little Coleman County to participate in the cruising activities, and there were almost no one was really getting in trouble. I mean, you could always find somebody somewhere being pulled over, but in terms of the number of people there versus the number of people that were causing problems, it was such a small number. And then you compare that to what happened when the streets became empty and the deserted places out in the country became filled up, and there were no watchful eyes, and you saw, way more than half of these graduating classes in these little county schools were using drugs in some capacity. What are you suggesting, Jason? Are you suggesting we bring back cruising and solve the drug abuse problem? No, I don't think that would work. Pandora's box is open. You can't just close that up and put everything back and say, hey, my bad. I hate to say it, but they were over-policing teenagers. You're cruising, you're the problem, and we have to somehow crush you with the hammer of justice and push everybody out of town. Mission accomplished. I mean, it worked, but as I said earlier, I think we just traded one set of probably very minor problems for another set of problems that are huge. Certainly, I don't think the police had those intentions. Actions sometimes just have consequences that we just can't predict, and I think this was a classic case of that. So I'm asking you, for where you live, did you see anything like this? I would like to gather some data for no other reason than I just want to know what other people's experiences were. So let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are on the subject. I got some more stuff coming with Sally. She's absent right now, so the videos that I'm doing are without her because she is in the body shop getting ready to get a fresh new coat of paint. She needed it way more than the cameras show on YouTube, I promise. I hope to get the engine swap started soon, so if you don't want to miss any of the content and details that are coming with that, be sure and give me a thumbs up, a subscribe. Go ahead and ring that notification bell so that when that next video is published, you'll know about it. So, until next time, this is Jason with Saving Sally, and this has been Carticulate.